Good afternoon, everyone. Craig Simpson from Radiant Creators and myself just did a full 2-hour interview. I know you're going to like the content of it. It's more on the vibrational frequency side of things, in addition to getting your mind, body, and spirit ready for the changes in the grand solar minimum. All the links are in the description box below for Radiant Creators, not only the podcast, the YouTube channel, and the website. So this is going to be part 1 through 4. Going to cut it up so wherever you are in the series, I'll leave the links in the screens at the end. So you can go ahead and just click and jump through part 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll leave up the full interview in case you want to view it that way, and also look for the podcast coming out. And again, everything is in the description box for all the links that you'll need, including social media and a way to get a hold of Craig after the interview.
So that's just something that I definitely noticed. And one thing that does get missed with all the prepping, it's great to be able to grow things, great to be able to defend yourself, it's good to be in shape and all of that. But one thing I would really recommend to people is learn first aid and secondary aid, and also, learn how to take care of trauma injuries. And I mean, all these things. It would not hurt everybody who has this mindset to learn how to be an EMT. I tell you, people who are not going to have problems are EMTs. They're going to be protected by society because even if you pull those ambulances around with horses, you're going to need them, and you're going to need those skills. Those people are going to be organizing, I think, a lot more than we might think.
That's true, and that goes back into the need for antibiotics, or how to produce antibiotics. And when I say that, I'm not talking about, whipping up your own bats of doxycycline or penicillin in your refrigerator or something from an egg. What I'm talking about is using natural plant medicines that we've been using for tens of thousands of years. Like if I give you a kilogram of marigold heads, do you know how to boil that down into a tincture that could be used as a natural antibiotic? What other types of blood clotting plants are out there do you know of? Where if you get a cut, if you're cut on somehow, are you able to, at that point, stop the bleeding using something natural? They found that, again, I encourage you to read this book called A Year in Hell from the Bosnian War Accounts, because it's kind of one of the best accounts that we have of this. And antibiotics were the most precious thing. They were finding people were dying from a skin cut that they couldn't treat. They had mortality rates from it you and I would laugh at. Like your kid runs and skins his knee or her knee, you wouldn't even think twice about it. People died from that there, just because they had no access to the most basic of basic, even just a simple alcohol swab. So moving forward, and not only if you know how to treat people, but if you know how to create that type of even simple antibiotics. I mean, I understand that that's not going to do much in terms if you get a bullet injury or something. And if they found a way, by the way, gunshot wounds, even when they were able to get to hospitals, even if you have a slight, even flesh wound from a gunshot wound or even something heavier, only 30% of the people would live, even if they made it to a hospital, just because of the lack of the resources there. And doctors were ill-equipped, and medicine is going to be one of the biggest things. I don't care if you're the strongest prepper on the planet, biggest mountain person, you get sick and you can't keep your hygiene up, you're definitely going to really have a difficult time. And again, hygiene. You need to keep yourself clean, because you're going to the bathroom elsewhere. If your water's not running, what are you going to do with your waste? And obviously some people are not even going to have any plan. They're going to go right next to the water streams, and then eventually that flows down maybe a lake, stream, or river where people are getting drinking water, trying to cook from that. If you haven't completely sterilized all that, you got all these other people who are going to get continually sick. And the amount of death that came out from waterborne illnesses in Bosnia was incredible as well. Like, wow. People that a simple dose of something that you could buy over the counter here would have saved their life, but they died from these types of waterborne illnesses. So yeah, I am, speaking of being an EMT, that's a great idea. I should actually, start delving into those classes myself versus just basic medicines. You can only stockpile so much antibiotic. There's a shelf life on that stuff. I know things go well past the shelf life, and please don't throw stuff away once it reaches the exact date. That stuff can be kept years and years past of what the date is. Oh, and by the way, since you brought up the Army, U.S. Army did an amazing tally of the medicines that they used. So the list was about 20,000 or 30,000 medicines deep. They went through every single one versus what the expiry date was versus the actual real usage past the expiry date to where it really was no longer functional. So they found some things that had an expiration date of, like, say, 2018, you could use into 2025. So even if it's a medicine that's packed and says an expiry date on it, you should check this Army PDF of all the medicines that they use. They're all listed by name. And look at the real end by date. Now, they found that the refrigerated vaccines, these types of things really did, they expired so quickly. But if it was in a packaged product, like a tube of ointment or something like this, we're talking like 8 years past the expiry date, it was still good. So think about that. Don't just rely on the expiry date. That was a manufactured thing, by the way, in the 1980s to get you to consume more, because I know people even today that routinely just look, oh, it's out of date, and they throw it away and they go buy another one. This was a manufactured ploy by the advertising and marketing industry to get you to buy stuff faster. So that wasn't natural. That was a concocted thing for increased consumption.
Yeah. A lot of things that can be very surprising with the expiration dates. Like, one thing I found, there was a military study recently. I could probably find it and maybe put it in the show notes, but it was different types of ways of stopping bleeding. And because right now what's very popular is quick clot. That it has, and they actually found, when they did some research, and I hope I can find this study, I think it was the military that did it, that there's all these new sort of quick clot methods of stopping bleeding, and they found that actually nothing works better than just gauze at a fraction of the cost. So it's funny. It's like there's all these new space age ways of stopping bleeding that they've impregnated gauze with and all, and they found that, and it was pretty recent, that nothing beats just pressure and gauze. You don't need to put any fancy stuff in it. And some of that stuff will then cause further problems if hospitals are scarce. So it's not even a good idea to use fancy blood clotting products.
Yeah, and they found another couple of things on the list there that are going to be essentials: disinfectant and the rubber gloves. So exactly for this type of thing, disinfectant for anything for waste, or after you might treat somebody, disinfectant. You don't know what kind of disease they might have in their blood too. Just general disinfectant, soap, so spray disinfectant, soap, bleach, ammonia, this type of thing, and then rubber gloves. So you can do that. An enormous amount of gauze. You can buy that stuff by the kilo in a box. It costs dollars. But those were the most scarce things because nobody prepared for that. Because the government in Bosnia was telling everybody, hey, everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be okay. And then suddenly everything broke down, and you got the troops running all over the place, chasing people out of their homes and villages just less than a week later. So people were completely unprepared. When they found one thing, the weapons and ammo, if you didn't have that, you were actually at the most harsh disadvantage you could get at. So they found that the number one thing was weapon and ammo, so any types of firearms, and the ammunition. You could have traded ammunition for food, and then eventually they would trade back food for ammunition. That was the number one thing. And then they said number two would have been the antibiotics and the disinfectants, things like this. So in order of ticking down things, you believe that antibiotics and medicines came above food preparation and storage. That's how valuable it was, because even the slightest injury would make you sick. Because they were tearing down the doors so they could burn to make cook their food. People were trying to put ladders over things they barred their homes in, and people were getting scraped from just daily stuff. Broken windows, got to clean it out, and anything could be a life-threatening injury that we would go, oh, we need a Band-Aid for that. Well, they didn't prepare for having 15 people in their family that would all get cut all the time from trying to keep the house safe or the neighborhood safe. They ran out of everything instantly because, everybody got a little box of Band-Aids. We got Band-Aids in our house already. No, you don't have 3,000 Band-Aids somewhere or, 20 miles of gauze. These are the types of things that we're unprepared for. And if you had just that, what you could have traded for a roll of gauze would have been cans of beans for a little roll of gauze. You got to read this accounts in Bosnia, what happened. I mean, it's the most compelling, up-to-the-date, prepping, absolute value guide that you can possibly get moving forward into. Well, you see these changes come. I see them come. What we can expect in the future in terms of value beyond food. Food is itself a thing. You're going to starve to death or you're not. You can trade beans or you're not. Cans of stuff or not. But beyond that, let's move past the food. Ammo, and medicine was the next two things up there. Repairing stuff too. You got to know how to repair some things.
Yeah, I saw that in Somalia, and I know people have mixed emotions about it and such. I mean, I don't, but uh, in Somalia, that was something that was absolutely apparent, and it was that you were armed or you were dead. It really was that simple. Or at least you were at bay to the bandits that were wandering around. And so, in a sense, if you could not defend yourself, you had no chance. And if you didn't have a relationship with your community and you could not together defend your community, you had very little chance. And I think that's, for some in this country, that's nothing. It would not surprise them, especially when you look at how many veterans are in this country, because we've been in perpetual war for 20 years at least. I mean, a lot of people are ready for that and they can handle it, but I'm not. I don't know. I guess we'll see how that goes. But that'd be definitely one of my recommendations is live where you can be armed. Live where you can defend yourself, because if you don't, I saw it firsthand. If you cannot defend yourself, you have no chance. Now, that's just one situation that I saw in one country, but those who could not defend themselves, they were done for.
Yeah, and again, if you're trying to put yourself in that mental mind frame where I'm going to have to shoot every day and like knife fight to get everything every day, you're going to experience that because that's kind of vibration that you're drawing to you. But if you think, all right, we have these weapons, we're going to fire off a few shots, and those guys are going to go for easier targets down the street, like they're not even going to bother us, we'll pop off a couple rounds, and they're going to go to easier locations in our street. We've already claimed this street, it's defended, it's ours. They're definitely going to move on because your threat of weapons to them is way more of a threat than they want to get hurt for to try to take your minuscule piece of territory when they could go down 2 blocks and get somebody who's completely unarmed. But if you got to, this vibrational frequency as well, it comes back to that, because if you think you're going to be fighting every day, you're going to draw that vibration to you. But if you think you're going to coexist in harmony and everybody's going to help and we don't need to fight because everybody already knows we're armed, or they're not even going to touch us because they have other stuff to go in different parts of the city they can wander through, and nobody's going to bother us. We can grow our gardens here. We're going to have thriving life. Nobody. And if everybody vibrates that same kind of thought, you're creating this protection bubble around you, because that vibration, they're going to like walk past you and you're almost going to be invisible. And it's truly like that. You just set your day and try to test 2 different vibrations you're putting out. Do a negative one and see how many people bump into you and stuff when you're coming out, or like have an angry look, or like, what are you looking at? Do this on purpose and then change it the other way, and like you just float through your day. And it'll be like this too. Vibrations are going to match during this time, and I think you need to be more careful of your words and your thoughts to get them to not sink back down into this competitive death game society that a lot of people envision that we're going into. It doesn't have to be that. Surely doesn't.
Oh, it definitely does not. And that's the thing. This is the thing about preparing mentally, physically, and spiritually, is where, maybe you're armed, maybe you're a prepper, maybe you know this is coming, maybe you are with like-minded others who we would consider radiant creators, who are going to thrive through the solar minimum, and it's going to be a disaster, but they're going to be fine. Their instincts are already speaking to them, so they're getting ready, and they're just like, for myself and others I know that are realizing what's going on, I just see it as another season. It's just another season. It's a natural season. And so with it being another season, you just live through it. It's kind of like in the winter, you make sure you have warm clothes, and this is just going to be a prolonged winter. But also, with the vibration you're talking about, and something I think is really important, is that people not despair. Don't get depressed about it. Like, really start thriving in your own life, living in the way that we should be living anyway. Really, we're just returning to our natural human nature, growing food, thriving with health, being part of a community that is strong, and really, I mean, the coming solar minimum is not a good thing. Society will suffer, humanity will suffer, but it doesn't mean it has to be a negative experience for you and your community. I don't know. It's an odd way of putting it, but it's very easy to despair. And also when you look at who's 100% ready yet, I'm not, but I'm working on it. And I think that's something I would really recommend to people. And I wonder what you think about that is how can people make ready for this? It just seems like you have to start learning and doing things that interest you. For heaven's sakes, grow some food. Be a prepper. Yes, you can stock up on things, but definitely a community of like-minded others helps you all grow together and get further faster. And when this comes, you probably still won't be ready, but your chances of survival are hundreds of times greater than they would have been.
Yeah, it's true. I'll throw a story out here. A friend of mine, Tim, we call him Bamboo Tim because he knows how to make everything out of bamboo. He started a few years ago reading books on how to just make simple. He started making shelves out of bamboo. But in that time, he's morphed it. I can make anything out of bamboo now. You can make anything. I mean, furniture, doors, walls, stanchions, sofas, anything. You can make anything out of anything bamboo. Now, for him, I can't do that, but that's a tradable set. If he knows how to create fencing and different kind of structures that can be utilized within the community, somebody else can have another skill set that's at that high level. You can learn from him on the go because it's always routinely when people get stuck in these situations when they're unprepared for it in the wartime. You talk about Somalia, Bosnia, wherever it might be. They weren't ready either, but they learned on the go, and then at the end of it, they were able to survive through these times. Now, I'm not saying don't prepare. That's definitely not what I'm saying. But you're never going to be 100% ready. And even in the prepping community, unless they're living completely in the mountains, completely off grid for like 10 years by themselves, that's really the only people that are going to be truly ready. But eventually they're going to run out of medicines too. So is anybody going to be 100% ready? No. Will some vestiges from our present society be with us during this entire transition? Yes. We're going to have the advantage of at least having some tech with us, some devices like refrigerators now, even if they're unplugged with the electricity, you can still close them to keep a rat or something from getting in there. We can still use some of our modern tech and our modern infrastructure and devices to be able to help us transition through. So do the best you can. I'm learning every single day on how to get food, store food, dehydrate food, and we're building this magnetic motor right now. By the way, those are illegal in the United States. So what I do, I'm not allowed to bring my device back to America. It's deemed illegal. So if you are going to build some of these devices, especially gravitational vortex power, you need to keep it to yourself and do not ask for permits or anything to do this. And I know that's going off in its own set of I'm telling you to do something that's not law-abiding. But if you go say, hey, I need a permit so I can connect because we got this gravitational vortex power plant, this water flow through that makes the water spin and you generate power this way. Salt Lauter's vortex principles. These things are not allowed in the United States because they're too efficient and they want to keep you on the grid. They'll make up some excuse like, oh, it might cause a fire or something. And if you say, no, I'm an electrical engineer, I can do it myself, they'll come back with something with a zoning permit and make you tear it out. And these are true cases of what has happened to people who provided their own power and their own solutions. So the reason I was originally into more magnetic motors was for crypto mining, because if you could use a disused coal mine, you could keep the temperature the same inside there, and then you could reduce the power that would be used for cooling the units. And then if you could create your own magnetic motors to drive the power, you just need a line out to then be able to get back to the internet. And these are the two main concerns. That's why they're doing a lot of mining up in Iceland and different places for temperature control. But if you can get it down in sort of an old disused mine, I was using a coal mine as an example, you can humidity control in some of the areas, but right inside there, the temperature stays the same and your electrical constraints. So if you can knock those two things out, then you can bring your mining cost right down almost to zero. And then from there, you become your own mint. But in today's world, you're not allowed to come up with your own solutions. Governments have set us into all these regulations that you're not allowed to create your own solutions. You have to stay inside their paradigm, inside their payment mechanisms. So do move forward, do experiment, but again, you're going to be on your own. You're not going to be able to even tell people that you have your own power sources, creating your own power. That's why they've been so staunch and fervent about not allowing Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla is the most famous, so obviously if you start there, you can find others. How about Marconi devices? Brown, again, electrogravitics. What if everything that we moved across the rail lines, the airplanes, the ships, the cars, trucks across our planet weighed literally 1/50th of what they do because of the electromagnetic effects of making it more weightless, not to zero, of course, but to make it weigh less just by using, again, the electromagnetic grid on our planet to spin 2 disks to make something lighter. So imagine the fuel costs that would save across our planet yearly that we wouldn't even need, or you could get trains to run down rails almost weightlessly. Like, these are the things that have been on the books for 100 years. I went to the Nikola Tesla laboratory in Zagreb in Croatia. That stuff's been around since the early 1900s. And these have not been allowed to come out to us. So you're on your own. You got to create your own solutions. And I wish you the best of luck. All the patents are out there to do anything you want. Encourage you to make your own magnetic motors. Do it, but keep it quiet. And stills, too. I went to some crazy places in Vietnam just last week. You can, if you learn how to make your own moonshine, you learn how to make your own medicine. You can use that moonshine and boost it up into the, the 180 range, and then that can be used as alcohol wipes or swabs like isopropyl alcohol or something. If you can learn how to distill alcohol, you obviously have a tradable thing there with the alcohol, but the tails and the heads that are poisonous for humans anyway, you can pull that right off and turn it in, and then refine it once more and turn it into alcohol that'll clean your skin. So there's all these skill sets that I am learning now, specifically doing stuff with corn and rice to turn it into alcohol. Magnetic motors, indoor vertical farming, and those are my skill sets that I'm trying to work right now. The EMT thing, thank you, Craig, should look into that. But we're all on our own in terms of solutions. So those are the skill sets I'm bringing, plus my knowledge. So that's what I have to offer community when I walk in. I don't know if I'd be welcome in your community if I have those skill sets. But again, you got to think to yourself, would you want me coming in? Forget the grand solar minimum YouTube channel. I'm just a guy that says, I can do this, this, and this in your community. Would I be welcomed? And you should think the same way. You want to walk in. Forget your past. Your past doesn't mean anything. The minute you knock on the door, that's all that counts. Can you help that community survive? And what value can you bring there?
No, it's very, very true. What dexterities do you have? What are you learning? And what can you offer? And I really do believe, and this gets into the high vibration ideal, is I think honestly it's what interests you. I guarantee that everybody has some things that interest them, and it could be anything. Some people might think that they don't have any interest in anything, and I guess that exists on a very, very rare occurrence. But like for me, I'm a mechanic, worked on cars all my life. I can weld, I can use a torch, I know first aid, I guess we called it like secondary aid and advanced trauma in the military, so I know that. Like, if a person is easy on themselves, it would not hurt to write that resume. What can you do? What do you have to offer? And really, what are your interests? I guarantee that there are interests that you have that if you pursue them, if you're not pursuing them, hopefully you are pursuing them, but if not, start pursuing them. Those interests will be what you will offer the community in that near future. I just don't think there's a dearth of avenues for people. I just believe in you can call it the vibration, our instincts kicking back on. Humans are so amazingly resourceful and so amazingly creative, and I think everybody just has a natural bunch of interests that are exactly perfect for their survival in whatever community that they're going to be a part of in the future, And, well, I guess some people will just die, but I'll hope for the best for most.
Yeah, and the amount of 25% loss of global population is kind of the range we're looking at right now. Some countries are going to be more affected than others depending on how close to nature that they are right now. So, going back to some of these verses in the Bible, like the meek shall inherit the earth, that's kind of true because they're more using, I'll take Vietnam. I just came back to Vietnam. Water buffaloes and living in the mountains, doing everything by hand, planting the rice, harvesting, doing it, brewing the alcohol, growing their own corn, make their own mash. They didn't really sell the alcohol; they traded it for other stuff. So there's a whole trading economy going on already, outside the money sphere of thing. And the extreme changes that they're experiencing in Vietnam right now too. Their planting season and the rain season is off by 2 months. So moving into this forward, the Earth's going to throw a few curveballs at us. The government's going to try to not let you trade. They're going to want to, alluded to that up in Pagosa Springs. The government wants you to get a permit to trade and pay taxes on what you traded. That's ridiculous. If I make something with my own hands, that's not labor, that's my own hobby. Why should I not be able to trade it for you of something that you love to do? Like you said, that's your hobby. Why should we not be able to get equal trade for that? You think it's equal trade? I think it's value. Okay, we trade it. And why does the government need to step in the middle and try to get its 2 cents for tax money out of that? Not acceptable. But they're going to go kicking and screaming into the night, trying to hold the old paradigm together. They're going to try to still continue to rope you in so you're reliable on them. And if you find any way out of their control net, they're going to try to pull you back in. So I don't know where we're going to go with this. You're going to have these people dying all over the place, left, right, and center. And 25% of the population is a conservative number, by the way. Some of these numbers that are higher, it scares me a little bit to think about it, and I really don't. I won't publicly go on record and state those numbers, but I will conservatively say 25% of the world's population won't be here in 2030. So as we move through all these changes, there'll be less competition for the resources just because there'll be less people.
Yeah, and that's something I would definitely try to get across to people. And here on Radiant Creators, we interview inspiring people to inspire others. And what I really want to get across to people is I see David and his work he's doing on Add Up 2030 on YouTube, and you're going to be at LeakCon coming up soon. I see the work you're doing as inspiring. I don't see it as fearful. I see it as hopeful, and I do think that obviously we're coming into a season of a solar minimum, and yeah, we are going to lose some of the Earth's population, but at the same time, I've learned to see things from a historian's point of view. Like, put yourself in the future. Put yourself in, 2100. If you see now from the perspective of a historian in the future, it changes how you feel about it. It changes how you view it. And so something unfortunate is about to happen, but it's a cycle. It's a season that's inevitable. The only reason we're losing, part of the population is because the population's been lied to. They didn't know that it was coming. And that's a sad thing because the government, it's letting people drown in the Midwest, and not even talking about it. So I see all this as, if I can separate myself from the immediate reality of it, it's a time that the historians will look back at and see is when humanity started thriving again. Really, because they started living the way they should have been living. I mean, I think it's only such a big disaster because we haven't been living as we should be living, and we lived under control structures that lied to us and set us up for the worst possible outcome. So in the end, when it all shakes out, it's gonna be okay. I mean, if you look at enough global history, enough history of this planet, this is just one of endless series of disasters that wiped out a lot of the population. I mean, I feel so indifferent when I describe it, but I think that's part of getting ready physically, mentally, emotionally, is start seeing it from the end, you might say. That's just one of my little takes on it. And also, you mentioned A Year in Hell, a great book. I have not read it, but I'm going to. But one I think that would help people too is, I think I cannot spell the guy's name, Sanjanista, Gulag Archipelago. And there's 3 books, and I think if you just read the first one, you're going to get it. And I think now there's a condensed version of all 3, and it's an amazing book. It's about Stalin's reign, basically, in Russia, and it will give you, well, not only an inoculation against socialism, but it will also give an individual, and you see in that writing what I think it's going to look like. Like, that's what happens when government goes full on crazy and wants control of the population. So anyway, A Year in Hell, that sounds like I got to read. And then Gulag Archipelago, that really taught me, I'm not sure if you've ever read it, but it really gets into Stalin's purge and stuff like that, and it gets into what the people were thinking and what the gulags were, and how pretty much the insanity that ensues when, I would say, governments get to where they're kind of are now. It might give people an insight into what the next step is going to look like and how to avoid ending up in that gulag.
And as well, inside that book, about a third of the way through, I didn't read the whole thing. I read, going through different parts. The confiscation of the farm machinery, once they did that, that was the catalyst for the famine, because they took away people's means to be able to mechanize the farming. They come in and like, oh, it's for the greater good. We're going to confiscate the machinery. The government's going to take over farming. It's awesome. You stay here on your land. We'll take over the plows and whatever. Okay, we'll bring the trucks in, take all that stuff away. They didn't take their food in the beginning. What they did take was their farm machinery, and then they were left like, oh, they took all our shovels too, man. We don't even have one shovel. How am we supposed to do anything? So you should understand my meaning behind that. If they come for the farm machinery, you're going to have to take a different look at what's going on. You should not let them take your farm machinery or any kind of tools that you have that you can continue for your survival. Because if you get one lesson out of that book, at least my takeaway from it was, when they take away your ability to grow the food, not your food, they're taking away your ability to plant it. That's a huge problem. And again, looking as a playbook or into a crystal ball moving out, look back in the modern minimum in the 1640s, and I encourage you to do a little reading back then. And Social Dobler has a great book about the 13th century, 14th century, with the minimum that went on there. You can see what was leading up to some of the wars, some of the conflicts. You can also see how the people survived and changed, what was most valuable, how people moved through. Parts of the world that were definitely going to be uninhabitable. Look for population migration. So the Scandinavian countries are absolutely going to empty out. So is Canada. It's not going to be habitable. Parts of Russia, China, they're already having problems. So, you can look for a lot of migration out of these cooler climes where there's no food going to be grown. They're not going to be able to import too much. The economy's going to be crashing all over the place. That's why I keep talking about crypto, because you got to have a different way to trade. There's going to be a lot of people moving around to different places. And when they get there, they're going to need goods and services. They're going to need things that you can provide in terms of value for them. So, take that longer term approach. Look, like you talked about, Greg, at the 100 year, now 2100, but also go back into history books and take a look at 1600s, modern minimum, 1640, up to say 1710. That is an awesome little part of history. It's like the most well documented, in terms of back then and what we consider fiefdoms, kings, queens, empires, and kingdoms, if you will, of how they changed as well during the duress of food. Not a lack of their being able to supply the populace and how they behaved, because you see that again and again. They always behave the same way, so you can kind of know how they're going to behave in the future. It's a reset button for our society and our current way we do things. It's not going to be an end all to end all everything. It's not. It's just going to be a reset, and we're going to come out and we're going to change it into something else as we move forward. Huge opportunity, and I will, say this: it's the biggest opportunity in human history at your doorstep. There's never been more opportunity than there ever is right now in front of you to grasp and find your niche to help and provide value moving forward. It's the biggest opportunity ever in all of human history combined right now. There's more wealth on the planet. There's more connectivity. There's more resources. There's more skill set. There's more way for you to be able to culminate and combine something into a package that can offer the most value. If you're not seeing it, I'm sorry. You're not seeing the forest and the trees. You're standing in the middle of the forest, and just grab a tree and make it your own.
Oh no, I absolutely agree that is perfect. Well, I don't want to. I mean, we've been talking for a while. This has been great. I guess we should probably wrap it up. And
wrap it up. My two lights turned out, so when you saw it get darker, my batteries ran out on my lights over there.
Oh, before all the batteries run out. Well, so you're going to be at LeakCon. So I guess tell us about LeakCon and what you're going to be doing there. And of course, where people can get a hold of you. And of course, it'll all be in the show notes. And before you do that, you mentioned the 16 and 1700s. Was there one specific book that you were mentioning that talks about that time, or just study the time itself?
Yeah, study the time itself. Now, for those of you that are searching resources on the internet, go to a PDF search engine,
Mm-hmm.
not the regular internet. Go to a PDF search engine. So go to DuckDuckGo or whatever. That's the browser I like to use, or Brave. Go in there and put in PDF search engine, and it'll bring you to a whole bunch of listings of PDF search engines. And when you get inside there, the only thing that will come up are PDFs. There'll be no other garbage on the net that you need to filter through it. I mean, it's just purely just link after link, a link of PDF. So if you put something like food production constraints in France in 1650, or barley pricing in Germany in 1600s, you'll start to get a lot of different things on what the value of food was, how governments, or just put government collapse in the 17th century Europe, and just things like this, and see what comes up across the timelines. Now, once you get the first documents or two or three, you can start to get a lot of really good keywords in there that you didn't know, oh, I should search for this. Take those keywords and then plug them back into the browser bar. Then you can start to get super specific. So for me, what I'm doing is, or I have done, I was looking at the harvest good years versus harvest bad years and how much the food pricing had risen across Europe for the wheat and the barley from the middle 1600s across the way. So some of the good years, the food pricing would come back near stable to what it was before post-crisis or pre-crisis. And then when they had a bad year, it would go up 4x for 2 or 3 years, and then it would undulate. It wasn't like 4x and then up. It went up and down the whole time. So remember, this grand solar minimum is not going to be a complete freeze out for 30 straight years or 20 straight years. There will be some good years in there where they're going to get a harvest out. Not as abundant as today globally, but they'll still be able to get a harvest or some harvest out well above what was the prior years. They'll be doubling, tripling what the yields were. But that'll last for only a year or two, and then whoosh, you go right back up and nothing grew, and then your prices spiked up again. So between those lean years, there should be some normalcy back to the economy again, where if you didn't get something or procure it in the first round, you should be able to get it in the second round. Like crypto trading, if you didn't sell out during the first run up to 19,000 with Bitcoin, hang on, there's another rally about to start here, in my opinion. Not financial advice, just thinking in the future how this cyclic pattern's working. So, other things could be done this second run up. And if you miss it again, just wait again. There'll be a third run up and a third, spike up there. Same thing with the food pricing and the food availability. If you miss it on the first 2 or 3 years, hang loose, you'll still be alive. Don't be the 25%. Get prepared. You can hang through. When the pricing comes back down, more things will become available in terms of machinery, seeds, and all this kind of stuff. You can get it, and then as the next food. And that's about nothing's going to be completely flatlining anywhere. There's going to be undulations within everything. Research yourself. 1640 to 1710. Sorry, I go on rants all the time like that when I start talking.
Oh no, I like it.
I'll be there for sure.
Rants are good.
I'm going to do some special stuff for the LeakCon. I have an hour to present there. So I'm going to try to boil it down. What's the sunspot looking out into the society reset? Some of the stuff we talked about right now. But I wanted to go into areas on the globe that are losing production and where I see forecasting out tonnages versus in versus out, which countries are going to go offline. And you can kind of do a better analysis on where you might find a safety spot on this planet.
Yeah, I think that's something that many people are interested in is, where should I be? I mean, that's part of why I'm in Arizona. There's a reason for it. Hopefully Arizona will be a lush, green place in the future, because it isn't right now. Right now it's kind of like Mars, but well, it has been great talking to you. I will, get this all put together and get this up probably in the next day or so, and I'll definitely send you a link to it. But I mean, thanks for taking the time. It's great. We had a couple rough spots there in the connectivity, but overall it was a good recording, and this has been great. And I really look forward to all the content that you're putting out. I mean, I definitely appreciate it. I think many people do. You put a lot of effort into the content you're putting out on Adapt 2030, and it's making a huge difference. I mean, it really definitely is, and I appreciate it. I hope you keep at it. And I look forward to seeing you in person at LeakCon. It's going to be great. It's going to be quite a time. I can only imagine.
Yeah. And one last thing, any links to my social media feeds, to the radio program? I'm on Revolution Radio Thursday nights from 10 p.m. to midnight. That's freedomslips.com Studio A, where I do a full 2 hours. Either I bring a guest or I do solo. I should have you on the program, bring you on there. We can share some time again. Just it's all audio. But rundowns to the podcast, where you can find the Mini Ice Age Conversations podcast on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, SoundCloud, and anywhere else across the net. And all my social media links, I'm up in Gab and BitChute, Brighteon, as well as the regular Facebook, Twitter, etc. That's all in every single video's description box. So if you go to the description box on any video, whether it be the podcast videos I do or the regular analysis videos, if you click on that thing where it says read more and you go down, everything will expand. Go to the bottom there, everything's hyperlinked. Just click it and it'll take you out to any of the venues that I'm in. 9 or 10 social medias. And, again, the audio and video content, visual content that you can find. In case you want to hyperlink and check it out, share with your friends, share with your family. Start the discussion with them, because, like, the greatest thing we need to move for right now is not finger pointing with the IPCC any longer. It's kind of past that. We need to start real conversations instead of name calling, because I found in the beginning when I was doing my channel, I was always bagging on the IPCC, and it pushed people away, like, oh, you're just some guy. Yeah. Now I want to start conversations. So please start a conversation with somebody and see what they think about the sun.
Yeah.
I'll leave it there.
No, I like it. I like that, starting a conversation, because we're in it together, and we're not necessarily going to get help from the governments or the mainstream media anyway. So there's no point giving them shit, because they're not part of the future anyway. So, but your fellowship, your friends and your family that you meet along the way, they are. So put your focus there, put your positive energy there, and yeah, and we'll make it. We'll be we are the 75%. Well, thanks so much for being on the show. It's going to lead through
to the new generation coming out. We want a new society when we come back the backside. I want to try to, once the control mechanism is lost over on this side with government control, and the way that they make us pay for resources we shouldn't pay for, with all the innovative solutions through these next 20 years, when we come out the backside, we really need to fight to keep that as ours and not get reeled back into their system of control. It might take a couple generations. They'll make everybody forget. But that's our duty to come out the backside and keep our children informed and our grandchildren, that we went through this time, and the old shackles and reins of whatever it was to control us are gone. We don't need to come back into that again. And that's going to be part of it too, is post this, you need to start thinking mind frame of keeping the education moving forward so we can continue to have a more free existence in harmony with nature, where we can rely more on ourselves and stay more self-sufficient versus relying on these big top-down systems that we've been kind of deluded into for the last 50 years.
Yeah, don't miss that future. Start getting ready. I agree, because I would love to see that. I mean, who alive today who's aware at all would not like to see a truly free humanity? I mean, living as they should be living. I would love to see that. So, I want to make it exactly like, start thinking from the other end. I want to make it so I can see that other end, so I can be there. Because what a glorious thing. I wouldn't want to miss it. It'll be worth the struggle. Life is worth the struggle. It was never going to be easy anyway. So just, let's get it on. Let's do it.
Wise words. Let's get it on.
Let's get it on.
Jim Morrison always used to say that when he'd meet people. It's like, hey, let's get it on.
Let's get it on. All right.
Famous Morrison words. All right, good.
Yeah.
I'll let you go. Thanks for the time, and wish everybody out there the best in research. See you later.
Take care.